All right, so we want to bring your attention to the shift that happened this morning when, since last night and all night long, yeah, there were such intense negative emotions, emotions that were so unpleasant, like a storm within you, like you were in tumble dry program of these emotions, all stemming from self-judgment, not being good enough, being ashamed. And basically what it is you're feeling a lot of separation inside. And then you were lying in bed still, and you were still feeling it. And then the thought came to you, which is like an insight. Ah, I must still have an entity. This must be the entity that is magnifying all of this so intensely. And instantly there was a shift. And then it was easy to say, I love this entity. It came to you, I love this entity. Because the first thought was, again, well, how am I going to finally get rid of this? It's still hanging on. And it's, I don't know how to get rid of this. And you know that this is not the way. That's not the way. Because that thought itself is also already in the ballpark of it is a part of the egoic mind system, that we always talk about, the inverted egoic programming based on separation. So it is still coming from that, wanting to get rid of. As you know, we have been on this journey with you together for a while. Yeah, the words are also speaking as if there were separation, but there isn't. These are streams of consciousness that we access. And then we have our perspective deepens and widens. And our spectrum of consciousness does the same. All right, good. Stick with it. Yes, very good, very good. And yet at the same time, what happened was you separated from the entity, in the sense, by identifying that, oh, that just came up. It just came up like, oh, this is the entity making it so almost unbearable, and also very jarring. Everything you say makes you cringe. Every single word is laid is being judged harshly. And from that mind, it is all justified. There are, well, look at this, look at that, and see what you did. And, there's a backdrop for it, or it appears so. So after you disidentified from the entity by identifying the entity, just like you disidentify from the lie by recognizing the lie, and you automatically then stand in truth when you identify the lie, when you recognize the lie. Same with the entity. Now you may say, well, but a lie, when it is discovered, when it is recognized, there's no belief in it anymore, so it has no power anymore, and so it doesn't stand anymore. It doesn't pull any weight anymore. It doesn't have an impact anymore. And you noticed how in that moment there was a huge shift. And it was still there. And the next notion that came was, I love you. I want to love you. I love you. And you held it in love. And it was the natural thing to do. And then it was like it was shrinking and shrinking and going and hiding behind a rock. And then as you continued into your day, the trigger points, the memories kicked back in, and every time then the same immediate reaction would happen, but then you caught yourself and realized, oh yeah, this is the entity. This is the entity. And the moment you recognize this is the entity, trying to feed off of your cringing reaction to the thought of, oh, remember this that you did that was not good enough, and this that you did that was embarrassing, and this that you did that you're ashamed of, and it just piles up. It's like it's it's it starts somewhere, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it piles up, and it goes very, very quickly. And from that cringe, from that reaction, that's what it feeds off of. That's where you give yourself away, your power away, and where you go to sleep, or where you, yes, go to sleep, because you reconnect with those aspects of you that are asleep. But every time that happens, and let's go into the example from this morning, your experience, that very quickly you remembered, oh yeah, oh, there it is, like almost instantly. That's the entity. And it shifted, and it shifted. It's like every time you recognize that's the entity, so that's not me, you cut that connection. You cut where the entity is siphoning off, is feeding. You cut that umbilical cord, or the pipeline, let's say, that keeps it going. It's also a pipeline that, when the entity feeds, it keeps the whole program, the whole cycle going. And it had a really good run yesterday with all the light language, and with that really, really high, powerful, and saturated. It was very saturated and permeating these high frequencies from this group of people sharing their light language from their hearts. Completely pure, immediate, authentic self was allowed, was opened up to come out and share and be seen. soul, a true soul gathering, and distance doesn't matter, as you know. Oh, wow. Mm. So yeah, it had a really good run, and it got it got excuse me, it got sustenance, and that's why it became more and more intense, and it wasn't letting off. Ah, there you go, there you go. Yes. Hmm. Recognition. Recognition. So now when you feel this cringing, and it doesn't matter what it is, when you feel this skidding on ice, being so insecure, the cringing, all that was going on yesterday when you were in innerly shaking um, and sweating and all of this, it was because it's like there's a tug of war. Well, not really. Let's see. Um, there's both. There's like, with so much soul presence, it brings up those high frequencies. They really bring up um, the entity, because they bring up everything inside of you that is at a lower frequency. So wherever the entity is latched onto, the wounds that are still there, where it's still feeding, the beliefs that are based in some kind of trauma or mind control or imprint. And then ultimately the core wound and all the wounds that stand on the core wound, it is coming to the forefront, and that means that the entity gets fed, and it puts like a huge magnifying glass on it, which of course also makes that an excellent opportunity. And you knew that mentally. However, you were suffering from the first moment on. You were suffering all through the night until this morning, until you realized, ah, that's not me. That's the entity. And so all those thoughts where you cringe about yourself immediately were recognized, that you are not cringing. It is not you that is cringing. It is the entity. It is your identity with the entity that is cringing. It is your identity with all of these negative emotions. When I say negative emotions, I mean the bad feeling emotions, the separation based emotions. But your soul, when it gets that information, when your soul witnesses and sees and has seen, how is your soul feeling about all your behavior, everything you said, you know? And so now, as you have identified, oh, all these negative emotions, that's the entity. That's the program. That's not me. Automatically, you step into your soul, or you're back in your soul, or those parts of you are back in your soul. And now you go back feeling this, abiding in this as your true self, and witness everything again. Witness everything again. Sit with what was making you cringe about yourself. And what you feel is now a connection between your heart and your throat. And your belly is relatively relaxed. And you don't even see, you're watching a movie. You don't even identify with yourself. You're just watching it. You're not identified at all. You're just watching it. It is only the entity that is identified with the image of who you are. And that's what makes it so unbelievably exhausting to try and bring across an image that you can sanction and say, yes, I like myself. Yes, that's good. That gets the check mark. That's great, because you're never going to get it.